Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending the webinar today. We are joined by the Martial Arts Collective, which is made of Solomon Brenner and Michael St. They have over 27 years of experience in the industry, and they are owner-operators of 22, not owner-operators, I got that wrong, but they have 22 martial arts schools under their umbrella. Are you owner-operators, guys?
We are. We own a big piece of all those schools, yes.
Okay. All right. So that clarifies that. So with over 27 years in the industry, they know how to turn a martial arts studio into a revenue generating business. And they've agreed to do a series of 3 webinars with us to help you grow your business. And so we'll start today with the first session. We'll share the information after this webinar. We'll share information on the Martial Arts Collective, and you are encouraged to reach out to them and learn more about how they can take this webinar series and help you continue in your journey in growing your business. So from that, I hand it to you guys. Take it away. I'm going to go off camera, and I will see you on the attendee side. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Allison. Thanks for the nice introduction too. I love it.
Thank
cool. So for those watching, whether you're watching live or the recording, the goal of today is to give you a really impactful 17 minutes. I find sometimes when I listen to seminars, it's really good for the first 20. And then by the second 20, I'm just checking my email and checking Facebook and kind of, running down the clock, right? So the goal is that you leave today with stuff you can implement right away. So if you are doing other things right now, if you're checking email or checking Facebook, put it aside and let's be totally focused and engaged. Yeah, you too, Mr. Brenner, totally engaged for the next 17 minutes. And the goal is that we leave here today with some things we can implement and take action on right away. So the topic of today's seminar is having systems in your school. And we define a system as something that's written down that you can duplicate with other people or other locations. And Mr. Brenner, I thought it would be good to talk about first our vision for the industry that we've been helping schools with, their impact, their income, their lifestyle and legacy, because I find that all kind of ties into why we need to have really good systems in our school.
Yeah, so that's really when we got into doing stuff outside of our own group, right? So our own group is 22 schools, and then we started letting other people in to follow our systems and create the same habits for all of our people. For all of our 22 schools, that's full-time schools with healthcare, retirement plan, people own their own houses, they make great money, they have unlimited retirements, and they're really doing, they're living the life that they want to live based on the hours they work and everything. And when we start to let people in, we asked ourselves, okay, what are we going to help people with? And the keys were impact first, right? Impact in their community. So you always think like your martial artists first, right? Everybody got into this for that reason. But at the end of the day, everybody should want to make a professional living, right? So income is second. And we feel that receiving is evidence of giving. And it's important that everybody really absorbs that. Receiving is evidence of giving, right? Not just like, oh, I'm gonna make a lot of money. Like, yeah, absolutely, I want to make a lot of money, but I want to make it because I'm helping a lot of people in a really significant way. And then the next one is legacy. Like, what are you doing to, impact the world? What are you doing to leave something better when you're done, whether that's through mentorship and helping other people open schools or whatever that is for you, growing up like kind of the next generation. And our overall mission was kind of like twofold. One is we really want to help people achieve whatever goals they have for their lifestyle. And two, we want to make martial arts a career that anybody will be proud to say they have to anyone, equivalent to an engineer or a doctor, not like, something that's a little bit embarrassing. And I know for me personally, although, my life is fantastic, when I tell someone I teach martial arts, you can always see it on their face. And some people say words like, oh, do you have a day job? Like, oh, what else do you do? When the reality of it is anybody who's on the inside understands that it's really probably better than most of the other careers. However, it's not perceived that way, and it's probably not that way for most people. So that's one of our goals. And that all of our people have the lifestyle they want. They can spend the family time that they want. They can travel when they want. They can go to the restaurants they want to go to, the concerts they want to go to, and help everybody the way they want to. The reason they probably got into martial arts to begin with.
Yeah, that's great, sir. Thank you. And before I go through kind of like a basic skeleton of all the systems we should have, could you real fast just to talk about the difference between a job and a business? because that really ties into the lifestyle piece of what you were talking about.
Yeah. So for most, not just in our industry, but in every industry, people, when they open their own business, they think I'm opening a business, but the reality of it is they just bought themselves a job, right? Like if you have to be there every day, if you're required to be there for that to run, then you have a job. You might have a highly paid job, which is great. You may not, if it's in our industry, you have a job where people like and respect you for the most part, but you have a job. By having the proper systems that Sensei Michael's going to talk about, and keep in mind, we consider it a system if a 10-year-old can do it. I mean, that's how, that's how we break it down, and he'll give you guys some ideas that you could, develop your own systems. But if you can't, you should be able to leave your school for between 3 to 6 months, and you should come back. It should be as good as it was before or better. And we've proven, most of our instructors have unlimited vacation. Sensei Michael's probably on the extreme, but one of our other instructors is pretty similar to it, where in 2019, you were off for 4 months. It wasn't 4 months in a row, but you were traveling for 4 months cumulatively during 2019. And if there wasn't COVID, I don't know if it'd be 4 months, might have been 3, might have been 5, whatever, but your school would still be at a very high level, one of the top schools in the country, based on the amount of students, profitability, and every metrics that would matter to anybody or should matter to anybody would be part of it. So you need to have those strong systems in order to have the correct lifestyle.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, sir. So what we're going to go through now is, what we call our roadmap. And this is the tool that we use when we're bringing on a new instructor, when we're helping another school to make sure they have the basic, skeleton. Okay, if you're going to have the difference between, Mr. Brenner talked about between a job and a business, here's what needs to happen. And I think, no matter what your goals are, whether it's just to have a great lifestyle, whether it's to have multiple locations and make a bigger impact that way, there's no way that I know of how to do it without really strong systems in place. We're going to kind of go through the outline together. And if you have a pen and paper handy, you can give yourself like a little kind of like check mark as you go down the list of, okay, what do I have and what's missing? And then we'll take the last couple of minutes together. If you have any questions, we can answer some questions and go through, okay, how do we really implement this and train this? And, probably more importantly, retrain this over time. So I'm going to share my screen.
And they put questions in the chat while it's happening. I know for me, I forget questions half the time when I'm doing this kind of thing. So they can just ask whenever they want, right? They can just put it in the chat box. It won't interrupt you.
Not at all. That'd be amazing. Yep. If you have any questions, let's do it live and we'll kind of, walk through together. Okay. So first thing to look at, and we're kind of starting at the very, very beginning, is your tuition structure, right? And we've seen, Mr. Brenner and I, and, Allison, who's, listening into, I know has talked to tons of school owners, and there's a lot of variety there. And this could be its own topic in and of itself that I'm sure we could do a whole series on. But as far as, what's the system for offering tuition at your school, right? And there's a lot of science behind what we do in our locations. But one of the things we know for sure, there should be different membership options. So if you have one option, that's okay. Multiple, though, are really the key. And how you structure that is really important too. And then how you charge your tuition, right? Whether it's monthly versus bi-weekly versus offering paid in fulls. We find bi-weekly tuition works really well. And I know a lot of you guys follow, Solomon and I on Facebook. You heard us talk about that for weeks now. But that's number one, looking at your tuition structure. Okay, what are the options I'm offering and how am I offering it, right? Okay, so now is when we really get to, then you want to add something, Mr. Brenner?
Yeah, I was just going to say, what you said is awesome. I think some people think tuition is just like, oh, that's how much my karate cost. But there's a science behind how, exactly how much, when, and and what the different options are. And you really need to be purposeful based on you of what those things are. It shouldn't just be like, well, the guy down the street is $79 a month, and this guy's $150 a month, and this guy's $200 a month. So I'm gonna be like somewhere in the middle. Like you really have to have like and even that, there's a science behind every piece of it, but you really need to be purposeful on how, like what the options are and how much it is.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, sir. Okay, so going down the list, right? So if we start from when a student first, reaches, or a potential student first reaches out, whether it's in person, through your website, through Facebook, they call on the phone, what's the procedure to turn that person from a, prospect into, an intro, right? Into their, the first time they come in the doors, right? And I'm going to kind of show you how we do that, really quick. But that's system number one. We were training somebody, we just brought on a new instructor that worked at another school, and now he's with us, which is super cool. And I asked him, oh, what was, when you were somewhere else, what was your system? And he's like, well, I answered the phone, so I just got really good at it over time. that's not a system, right? There's no way to retrain getting good at it over time if you're trying to teach another instructor, if you're trying to open another location. How you confirm that lesson is a whole system in and of itself. We have a 7-step process we use between when we schedule the appointment to like they actually show up for that appointment to make sure that they come in for their first lesson, right? What your introductory procedure is. So once they're there, what are they doing? How you enroll them, once they're enrolled, what's the next step, right? Is there an upgrade process? Anything you want to add on there before we keep going, Mr. B?
No, sir, just that it also is constantly evolving. This next generation that's having children is coming to our school is a different generation than it was 20 years ago or 27 years ago when we started. So, I mean, like, just an example that I'm sure everybody's already doing is, switching from phone calls to text messaging, but then having that messaging based on the science of communication, not just like whatever you feel like writing. Like all of our schools have, programmed in scripts into their phones, but you really need to make sure that you're following the science as well as the communicating with people the way they need to be communicated with.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And I'm glad you brought that up too. Sometimes, we've heard in the past that, people, they don't want to memorize a script, and we'll talk about kind of our process for that at the end. But they think like somehow the scripting is bad because they want to do it from the heart and just interact with the person. And for us, what we know to be true is if we know the best way to help someone, not training our people to help them consistently is doing them a disservice, right? That's the benefit. We know over 27 years the way to teach someone their first karate class. And if we were to let our people kind of like wing it or do it on the fly, we're doing them an actual disservice if we believe, which we do, what we offer and you can make a difference in their life. So I think sometimes we need to get out of our own way. Like, the scripting of it, we do the script because it works, right? Because we know that's going to help people get results and make progress and be lifelong martial artists. So this next topic I'm really excited about, and we're going to just kind of go through some key points, but this is actually our topic for next Tuesday, where we're really going to kind of go into the details of how we work on retention at our schools. But number one, do you have a way to track attendance? Number two, are people registering for classes? And are you following up with people that don't register for a class? What if someone doesn't show up to a class? What's the procedure for that? They miss a week, they miss 2 weeks. What are you doing to get ahead of all that, right? That's what we call triage at our schools. We know when someone calls to quit, and we have a process for handling that. That's a system in and of itself. But we know when someone calls to quit, we're playing defense, right? We're on the losing side of that conversation. If we can get ahead of it, we're always in a better spot to help our students, right? So, what's your system for getting ahead of those conversations? Progress conferences, for us, we do that quarterly. We check in with our students in a very systematic way to make sure they're reaching their goals and we're on the same page for what their next goals are. How you're connecting with your students, we'll talk about this next Tuesday, but the 2 key ingredients to, keeping your students long-term, and this you should definitely write down because you can use this in your own instructor training: progress and connection. So how are you mindfully creating that connection on purpose? And then different teams at your school. Leadership team, which is what we call our instructor training program. We're talking about that in 2 weeks. So not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after. But what's your system for developing instructors, right? I think for a lot of times it's just the person that was standing around the longest. Oh, they'd be a good instructor. How are you mindfully developing an instructor, right? Black belt team, which for us is kind of like one of our upgrade programs, whether you have a demonstration team, which is a huge retention tool, and what's the system to lead all of those. Well, before I move on, Mr. B, anything to add? Love it, sir. Great, great, great. Okay, so next step, and this is one of the things that, I think ends up on the back burner a lot is, what are you doing to mindfully market your school? And for most of us, at least the school owners we've been talking to, things have been really good the past couple of months. Depending on where you are in the country, it might be a little bit different, but overall, it seems people, want to do karate right now. There's lots of leads coming in, lots of new enrollments coming in. And when things are good, it's like the stock market, right? When the stock market's up, everybody is an investing genius. When it's not, how well do you do? And having a real system in place for marketing and generating leads and new students is how you grow, over 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. So do you know where your leads are coming from? And are you mindfully getting them? Is your website optimized the right way? And are you constantly, working with your website team to make sure you're getting the results you need? What's your plan for paid advertising? Facebook is a whole animal in and of itself. Are you doing it on your own? Are you hiring an agency? Do you have an understanding of it to make sure that you're getting the results you need? Birthday parties for us, part of it's a revenue generator, but also it's a way to generate leads and new students. So what's your system for running a party, for getting birthday parties so your students know about it, how you do local events and community events. I'm sure we've all been to, the local fair where there's some people sitting behind their table complaining that it's not very busy. And then there's some people in front of the table where there's a line, around the block to talk to them, right? So what's your system for doing that the right way? And then internal events, what are you doing to promote your school internally? And, is there a systematic way to do it? Or is it, you look at your appointment book and you don't have a lot of lessons or, intro lessons, and then you're scrambling to figure it out. And then the last two pieces, and remember, this is just like basic, if you have nothing else, you would need all of these. What's your system for retail at your school? For us, equipment is programmed in at the enrollment. So when someone starts, there's required equipment, right? Which does a couple of things. Part of it's revenue, part of it's retention. We'll talk about that a little bit next week. Apparel, t-shirts, shorts. Last month was our big push for summer apparel, and most of our schools generated between an extra $2,000 and $6,000 in t-shirts and shorts, right? That's a big extra bump in revenue if you do it the right way. Weapons training, for us, it's programmed into our curriculum, so it helps with retention, but it also helps with revenue, of course. Upgraded uniforms, special events, what we call HIT team, which is a high intensity training program, but it's just different levels of experience, right? We know that people want more stuff and different experiences, right? And they want those opportunities. Do you have a system to give them those opportunities? And then Mr. Brenner, I know this is really something you're passionate about, and you talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but okay, you have all this stuff, your school's doing well, what's the system for retirement at some point, or what are you leaving behind, or how are you helping the next generation?
Yeah, so a huge believer in saving for retirement. Anybody that's out there that's not saving, the most important ingredient to retirement as far as having enough money is to save as early as you possibly can. The best time to start saving was 10 years ago. The second best time is right now. So you need to make sure that, like, if you do anything as soon as you get off this phone call, it's start, your retirement savings today. And I think we're in such a lucky industry because although I'm not teaching a ton of classes anymore, I still get to be involved in the martial arts. I still get to teach when I choose to. And to me, that's retirement. To me, retirement is not having to teach, not required to teach, but I get to go teach whenever I feel like it at whatever school I feel like it. That to me is retirement, not because I have to teach. And the second part, the legacy and the mentorship, there's nothing more fun for me than someone who has, a school that might be struggling or just not living to their potential. And then they can plug in the systems, and our systems are what we're truly good at is figuring out best practices and applying them. So anybody who's watching, like, there's a lot of stuff on there. In my opinion, after 27 years, the only possibility of you creating something truly large and amazing and really impacting the world in a really great way is for you to become a student into every piece of that, where you're reading books from every industry on retail. You're reading books on, listening to the TED Talks, going to seminars, you're really investing. I don't think anybody invests more money and resources and time than we do. All those high ticket seminars, we go to those things, we're part of so many different things to help our people and to help our collective. And then we also expect all of those people to be doing it. So they're bringing information back, like, oh, this way worked, but maybe this way might work a little bit better, right? So I think everybody gets into it for the martial arts, and so did I. You also need to be in love with all those systems in order to build something truly big or be part of something to figure it all out.
Yeah, no, 100%. So one of the things that makes us, I think, unique and has 100% helped with our success over the years is our focus on implementation. If you were listening to the seminar today, during the seminar, our team probably would have had a dozen messages of, okay, what about this? What about this? How are we doing that? We would have taken action 6 minutes ago, as the presenter was talking, right? So you're right. You're looking at that list. If you're just starting, I would imagine it's completely overwhelming. And and those wasn't even all of it. That was like the basic framework of these are the must-haves, not the nice-to-haves. So if you're watching, Mr. Brenner, and you were just starting out, how would you begin developing these systems? What are some strategies? Like, okay, I get it, I buy into it, I believe it. Okay, now what?
I mean, I always think in life you have like two choices, right? Like, you can do it on your own, And, you'll maybe get there, trial and error, right? Like you'll figure it out as you go. It just takes forever. One of the things that we always did is we always, sought out the best in the industry for everybody. Pretty much anybody who's a consultant in our industry today, we probably have hired at some point to either come visit us or whatever. And we always and way outside the industry, we're going on, we do business stuff to learn through Disney or to learn through, newsletters, like the amount that we invest in. So I don't know, the first step is either, decide like, hey, I want to do it all on my own and figure it all out, or I need to find someone who's already there. And I know it sounds self-serving to us because our collective is awesome. But instead of trying to figure it all out, we're going to just, go to the next step. And I stress that because, one of the people in our group who is, by any metric successful during COVID, when things were falling apart, how did he spend 10 grand or 20 grand on more education?
I know who you're talking about. It took me a second to process. Yeah, easily, 100%. Every
Yeah,
time
like he was like, even with the, we didn't get crushed, but we certainly took a dip during COVID, and it was by far the most scariest thing we've ever gone through as a business. And he's out there spending 10 or 20 grand learning it and then bringing it back to us. You know what I mean? Like it was like, and he's still doing it, and it's just awesome. And all of our people are like that, right? So you're either gonna figure it out for yourself by reading some books, TED Talks, whatever, which is wonderful, or you're going to, join some kind of group, whether it's ours or something else, and it's going to be lightning fast. It'll be 6 to 12 months. You'll be where, we put all the new people in the collective through an immersive process where 9 to 12 months, maybe, like every system you just saw, they don't just get it. I mean, we make sure they are doing it perfectly.
Yeah, I'll share just two things before we sign off. So we respect for everybody's time, but you reminded me when you talked about, one of our, school owners, just think about they invested in themselves. And you were with me for this. It was probably, I don't know, 14 years ago. We went to, it was like some documentary we watched about like the financial collapse. And remember at the end, there was like a panel of investors. And, the question of course was, okay, in this current climate, what should you invest in? And some people said gold, some people said oil, some people said real estate. And the last person on the panel that people of course wanted to hear from was Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett, if you're watching and you don't know, one of the wealthiest people in the world, his net worth is something like, I don't know, $100 billion. I mean, just, insane amount of money. So of course, everybody was like, okay, what is this, what does this guy think we should invest in? And his answer, and this is one of my favorite stories to share, and you can share this with your students. He said, the best thing to invest in always is yourself. Because if you make yourself the best at whatever, if you're the best at selling seashells, well, you're always going to have, opportunity, right? And I just think that, I think the martial arts, we of course teach our students to be learning and growing, but I think sometimes, we exclude ourselves from that. Like we don't have to do it. Taking that time to invest in yourself is always going to, provide returns. So last thing before we go, we have the systems in place. Can you talk about what we call system slippage and how we, avoid that, happening, or how do we, correct that over time?
Well, we try to make it better, and we're certainly not perfect at anything. Like that's one of the things that I love about us is all those systems we have, and they're all written out, and everybody's got them memorized, personalized, internalized. We really make sure we do it. We're still constantly modifying them, and slippage is, like I know the phone script today, but I guarantee you, if 6 months from now, unless I'm looking at the phone script, like I'm actually rereading it, I'm saying something different. I probably think I'm not. I probably think I'm doing it the correct way, but there's something has changed over time. So we call it zero basing, where we go back and it's programmed. We have our collective meeting. That's one of the reasons it works, right? Like we're doing this 4 days a week with everybody. It's throughout the year, it's reprogrammed in where we're going back. All right, guys, we're all going to practice the phone script together. We're all going to practice the first lesson. We're all going to practice, whatever the system is. And that's how we fix the slippage.
Yeah, I love it. Right. Just constantly going, refreshing and renewing and, just going back and practicing and drilling it. Just like, you would drill a front kick, right? You practice it, again and again over time.
How many times have you visited a friend's martial arts school and they're doing like a really cool drill and you go, oh my God, we used to do a drill just like that, or that exact, oh, we should do that again. That's so much fun. It was awesome.
Yeah, I would say
it's not like, it's just like, you just like forget like that, that it was good and you used to do it and it was awesome. So it's the same thing with all this stuff. You have to create it to begin with, get everybody on board to do it, make sure they all buy in and memorize. And the most important person is you, right? Like if you're not doing it, nobody else is going to possibly do it. it can't be like, oh, here's a phone script, go memorize it. Like, I don't think you'll ever have a business that way. It's got to be like, it's got to start from the people running it and then go from there.
Cool. Okay, so last thing is when we have a minute left. So we have all the systems and then we're done, right? It's like, you write them once and then you never have to look at it, but of course you're going to retrain it, but then like,
It is truly amazing to me that every time we come up with something that for us is revolutionary, which usually comes from another industry or some other business, I do think we got it. We got a business system. Like, we're not gonna have to worry about this anymore. Like, this is great. Everybody's going to do wonderful. It's perfect. And then I always think we do. And then, no exaggeration, like 4 weeks later, there's a new thing we're doing. So no, I mean, you have to constantly be refining and redesigning and improving whatever your system is. Because, we, again, less than the week that we use for the students, the world is constantly moving. So if you're not moving also, you're actually going backwards. So we need to make sure that if you're serious about your business, and in my mind, not really your business, I think your business should serve you. If you're serious about having the best lifestyle that you want for your family and for yourself, you've got to be a constant student. And I took classes at 2 universities last year, or I guess 2019, just to learn some new stuff. And it was awesome, right? Like, I didn't have to do that. I don't really have to do much of anything, but it was, whatever. Except for focus. I got to focus on the seminar. You need to really be a student and like love learning about the business and love learning about how to impact people's lives better. And if you do that, you can really create a lifestyle for yourself that is second to none. I don't know a single person, period, that has a better, like, there's nobody, like, none of the moms or dads at our school am I envious of any of their lives. As far as like, oh, they have a really cool job. There's definitely some people that have cool jobs, but they all work, way more hours or way, harder, in my opinion, than I do, where they don't get to help people, right? They might have like a really cool job or they get paid a ton of money. Like, that's cool, but they don't get to help people, or they have a cool job, but they don't make a lot of money. That's not fun either, right? Like, the combination of all of it is, I think, what's possible in the martial arts. It's like, it's truly this like amazing sweet spot, if done right, where you can help a lot of people, make a ton of money, and have a ton of free time. And when I say free time, like, I have a little baby at home. So, I mean, I don't really have any free time, I would say, but I certainly have a ton of time to play with her, which is a total blessing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is your free time.
It is. You guys probably heard some Sesame Street tunes behind my back.
Amazing. Everyone, I want to be respectful of your time. So a couple of things before we go. Number one, if you have any questions, reach out to the team at ASF, reach out to me, reach out to Solomon. You can find us on Facebook. We're happy to help and, try to point you in the right direction. Number two, so we're back here again the next 2 Tuesdays. Next week is going to be all about retention. And then the week after is all about instructor development, 2 things that both Mr. Brenner and I love to talk about. So they will be excellent. And with that, I'll just wait a second. If everybody has any questions, you can throw them in the chat real quick. But otherwise, thanks for joining us. And if we can be any help, of course, reach out. Thanks, Mr. Brenner.
Thank you, sir. Wonderful job, sir.